Before we get into the video, I quickly want to say I haven't laid off the videos or anything. I recently made a TikTok and I've been uploading consistently there, and I'm planning to continue uploading with a proper back to normal schedule on YouTube, so go follow my TikTok, the link will be in the description. Ever since I started my new Goo agenda around a year ago now, I've waited for the day to come where I can finally make a proper Goo Kim scale. I've waited for the moment to come where I can say with chest that Goo Kim has redeemed himself from what he went through in the hunt for gun, and now that the intro arc is officially concluded, I can say that time has come. So just how strong is 50 Sword Goo? Fortunately for me, there is more than one answer, more than one approach to answering that question, and I'm gonna try my best to cover every single one of the approaches there exists and find the most appropriate one, and by appropriate I mean favors the Goo agenda. I'm sure we're all aware of this by now, but as of late, PTJ has introduced a new power system, framework, amp, whatever you'd like to refer to it as, a new means for characters to power creep other characters in Lookism, that being unique paths. In an upcoming video, I'm gonna be discussing the path to the pinnacle, unique paths, and other recent phenomena of the like. The reason I bring this up though is because unique paths and the path to the pinnacle have become by far the most contentious topic in the power scaling side of the Lookism community, and it all comes from a singular statement. The power creep incident, which took place in chapter 511, so not recent whatsoever, where in a conversation with Johan Seong about his odds at beating someone like Gun, Tom Lee says if your copy ability is all you've got, even 5% would be a generous assumption. This isn't a question of whether you're strong enough or not. A person who walks their own path is different. The ones on that path are on a whole nother level. Remember this, there's only one way you can beat the ones on that path: to find your own path. Clear cut, short and sweet. Tom Lee tells us right here that he believes in order to beat someone with a path, one must have a path to the pinnacle themselves. Expressively, this just means path over pathless. You would think a statement like this wouldn't be contentious because this isn't exactly the first time a power creep has taken place in Lookism, and it may not even be the last either. But the reason this statement throws a wrench in the mix for most is because of the people with a confirmed path and the people without a confirmed path, as to date in Lookism there have only been 5 individuals to have a confirmed path. In other words, the means to reach the pinnacle and defeat those not at the pinnacle yet, those being James Lee, Gun Park, Gaprion Kim, Johan Seong, and Little Daniel. Just from that final phrase alone, I think you could tell the issue at hand by yourself. No, the issue is not in regards to path over pathless being true. The issue stems from the fact that path over pathless being true would put Johan Seong on the same tier if not higher than Gaprion Kim, but would completely disregard his arch nemesis Shingen Yamazaki and the man he gathered his fist gang to defeat until Shingen himself is confirmed to have a path. I'm not gonna delve too much deeper into the path system and whether I think path over pathless is the case in this video, but the reason I bring this up in reference to how strong Goo Kim is lies behind Goo Kim falling victim to the same curse people like Kite, Shingen, and other supposed pinnacles fall victim to: not having a confirmed path but being implied on par with confirmed path users. I'm not gonna force you to abide by path over pathless, and I'm not gonna tell you to disregard it completely. That's why I mentioned the existence of multiple approaches to the question of how strong 50 Sword Goo is. However, in aims of going over every single one of those approaches, path over pathless is something I have to tackle. As a result of Goo Kim finally being strong enough to be comparable to those with a path whilst not having a path yet himself, now that we understand where the rule of path over pathless is derived from, it becomes 1,000 times easier to answer the question. In chapter 579, Goo Kim was tasked with defeating Patron Joe once and for all, and being the figurative resurrection of Yu Gang Ha that stops the Dark Society once and for all. His brawl with Patron Joe kicks off very one-sided in Patron's favor, which is not something I'm surprised by because it's something we've seen from Goo before. Though he does like to get rid of his opponents quickly and not give them a chance to grow stronger according to him, he does tend to take a while to get serious himself. The latter half or even third of this fight was one-sided in Goo's favor, and what we saw of him was something we haven't seen from any Lookism character yet: a complete and utter dismantling of a top tier, not only without being hit but also without giving them a chance to properly react. Goo claimed to have done something no swordsman found even remotely possible in the past, and with ease. After his loss to Gun, he had put effort into something for the first time in his life, and his first time training with proper conviction for 1 hour and 1 hour only, he forged the Goo Kim style Moonlight that takes Moonlight, which is a sword style we'd only seen 4 swords of due to collision of trajectories, and turns it into his own Moonlight that he claimed had 50 swords as opposed to the original 4. And against Patron, he only needed 7. That's right, 7 out of 50 swords, with each sword being faster than the one preceding it, by the way. The first 3 swords were used before the introduction of Goo Kim style Moonlight and were also used against Gun, that were followed up by the 0 sword that we did not see against Patron, and the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th sword were used to turn Patron into a Roblox character. So you'd obviously ask yourself, for a character to be that much faster than someone like Patron Joe, a true pre-generation top tier, whilst only being on the 8th of 50 swords that get faster consecutively, is there really any way for anybody to beat Goo having reached the 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th, and even 50th sword? For someone who believes in path over pathless, the simple answer would be yes. Unfortunately, unfortunately for people like Goo, Kite, Shingen, Mugen even, and the like, they haven't been confirmed to have a path. Now, what Goo Kim did on Thursday, the night of chapter 580, was something nobody's ever done or could ever really do before in Lookism, and much like Daniel, Patron makes a remark regarding Goo Kim's Moonlight saying, "That actually exists." I couldn't react. The Moonlight sword art, that's acknowledged even in China, is so difficult to develop that it only has 4 forms. I couldn't see it, again in reference to Goo's 5th sword. No master could ever come close, and yet you're telling me you created the next forms in just an hour? Reading this, you'd think Goo Kim unlocked his path, but that much we can't confirm, and for that reason, as aforementioned, it would be easy for someone who applies the rule of path over pathless to say Goo Kim couldn't be the strongest character in Lookism, and through this lens, you'd have to disregard every character in Lookism that's been confirmed to have a path, as no matter how strong Goo Kim was, he would have no way of winning against any of them because he himself hasn't found his path to the pinnacle, his path to their level in the verse. This would mean that Goo would only be in contention with those without a path, and someone like Kite or someone like Shingen would be his biggest competitor. But seeing as though he blitzes the living hell out of either of those two, judging from what we've seen of them, Goo would essentially stand at the pinnacle of anyone without a path in Lookism, which is ironic. He stands at the pinnacle of those who haven't reached the pinnacle yet. But what if you don't believe in path over pathless? We've gone over the path over pathless approach, but it's not like there haven't been outliers or question marks, wrenches in the mix. And this brings us to the other 2 ways to answer this question of how strong Goo is. I'm gonna quickly brief over any reasons one might not subscribe to path over pathless other than pushing the Goo agenda, the greatest agenda of all time, of course. And if you're one of those people, where exactly you'd be able to rank Goo? You may be wondering what I mean when I say people that don't believe in that rule. If it's a rule, it should be followed, no? Meaning if the only way to beat a path user was by having your own path, logically any path user that's fought anyone without a path has won, correct? Incorrect. And that's the sole reason one might say path over pathless isn't universal. It's not a stats thing, it's never been a stats thing, and it may very well be a stats thing in the future, but it isn't now. James Lee versus Young Ji Yuk is a prime example of this. Whether or not you believe James had a path in Qian Liang is up to you, but based on the fact that he hadn't fought anyone worthy of pushing him to unlocking his path after Seongji, and having also fought a path user in Old Gapryong prior to Qian Liang, I am very much so inclined to believe James had his path at the time, and if he did, that would mean having lost to Seongji before unlocking his 3rd mastery, we'd have ourselves our very own exhibit of a fighter on the path to the pinnacle losing to a fighter without a path. I mentioned there were 2 other ways to approach this question if you disregard path over pathless, and Seongji versus James is our gateway to understanding both. So to keep things simple and make a long story short and sweet, you either believe certain characters that haven't been confirmed to have a path actually do have one and they just haven't been confirmed to have one yet, or you just completely disregard path over pathless. Let's look into the former of those 2 perspectives, Goo having not been confirmed to have a path but crushing the 3 requirements for having one, those being talent, which I don't think I need to explain, experience, which I also don't think I need to explain, and conviction, which he lacked before forging his Goo Kim style Moonlight. You would apply the same logic you do to someone like Shingen and assume despite not being confirmed to have a path, Goo has a path regardless, meaning rather than standing at that synthetic pinnacle of his, Goo could actually be in contention with other path users and inch closer to that number 1 spot. Or you just disregard path over pathless entirely. No matter what pill you decide to take in reference to Goo either having a path or path over pathless being contradicted, you'll end up at the same placement for Goo, just a different order for those who stand below him. So to briefly sum this up, if you think path over pathless is true and you think Goo has no path, Goo would automatically be the 6th strongest character in Lookism, being the strongest pathless fighter ever and standing directly below the only 5 people who have been confirmed to have a path. If you think Goo does have a path and Goo Kim style Moonlight is his path, it just hasn't been stated or confirmed to be his path, or if you think path over pathless is TS, BS, PMO, Goo would be a lot higher than that. But where exactly would Goo rank? Simply put, either the 2nd or 3rd strongest character in Lookism. No matter how you look at it, Goo unfortunately has no on-screen way of countering Daniel's blitz counter shenaniganry, meaning he would rank below him. And as for James, he's someone I'm gonna make a video on in the coming days because I think where he ranks should be a discussion of his own. But for now, he's gonna assume the number 1 spot due to being the final boss of Lookism. But as I mentioned, I'm gonna make a video on this anyway. So having gone over path over pathless in the briefest way I really could, there is your answer. If path over pathless is the case and Goo has no path, he is top 6. If path over pathless is the case and Goo has a path, or if path over pathless is not the case, Goo is top 2 to 3. And yeah, that's about it. Drop a like and sub if you feel like it, and I'm gonna continue thinking of more Goo agenda arguments.